Yo, what is up, guys? Mike Thomas, aka the Young Trish here, and I am joined today by the lovely, the fantastical, the wonderful Daimax. That's your line.
Oh, I thought you were gonna finish it.
No, no,
Okay.
no. We are here today with a Firestorm tier list video because nobody's made one. We kind of noticed that as we were just kind of hanging out. We were like, has anybody made a tier list? I don't think they have. Firestorm has been going on for a little bit now. What has it been? Like 2 premieres, Daimax? Something like that?
Yeah, 2 premieres and a piano.
So we've had a few tournaments. So now that the format has settled a little bit, I think we can comfortably say about where decks fall. So we're going to be going in and rating all of our decks, or all the decks that we think are in the format today. Let's hop into it. Alrighty. So first deck that we have here. Do you want to start with Antitan, or should we go with my favorite deck first?
Oh, we got to start with my favorite deck too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw right in BT. This thing's mid.
Yeah. It's kind of mid. It's
I
better than
love
before. I think.
I love the Champions of Apollo. The deck's completely reinvented. Having Exalta's champion is such an incredible tool when you can actually foretell. And, Lyre of Apollo is disgustingly overtuned, and this deck will only get better as they print more champions. The second they print a champion with, 3 attack, it's, over.
Yeah.
Well, more than 3, specifically. But, as is, the deck's kind of mid. It's just kind of whatever. I feel like that it's held back mostly just by the fact that it doesn't have convincing outs to Lycovoid.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a reoccurring theme that we're going to see with this tier list. So, unfortunately, Solar still obviously S tier, but unfortunately, realistically B tier.
Yeah.
I think we have to talk about the obvious deck in the room because we kind of can't evaluate any of these other decks without talking about it. And I think that's the good stuff deck, or you could call it fives. It's less about fives now than it is just really high quality cards. That it's good stuff. This is obviously S tier, right?
Oh yeah, no, unquestionably. This is far and away the best deck, I feel. It's just, it has all the best tools, it has all the best cards, and it's the most condensed pile of answers. And with Firestorm, so many things are 2-card combos, so many things want specific niche game states. You could just throw Viserys onto any board state and probably win.
Yeah, and also pairing that with the Lycovoid stuff, it's one of the decks that most easily slots the Lycovoid stuff. So you have the Lycovoid stuff, which is the big threat of the format, and then you get to play all the really broken cards like Viserys, Spectrus, Champion Galaxy, Eddie, Astrabbit, etc., 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 and then you still have space to play tech cards. So very, very broken. And with that in mind, I next want to rate Antitan. Daimax, how do you feel about Antitan?
Anthony Titan is a deck that I think is very mid, but I know you're a believer.
I'm a believer.
You want to go ahead and tell us about why?
I think that this deck is A tier. I'm gonna put it in A tier because I think that this deck pairs matches up very nicely into the best deck in the format, being the fives good stuff deck. Where I don't think this is an S tier threat though. I don't think these two are fighting against each other. I think you could realistically put this down into B tier most days, but I think with a good pilot and a good list, I think this deck goes up to A tier because of the Champion Spectrus card. That card being able to punish the good stuff deck forever going wide with Lycovoid feels really, really good. And then you're able to just get into the Antitan immediately. But what I think really makes this deck solid and A tier rather than B tier is this is basically just a good stuff deck that just plays Antitan in it. There's very few differences in my mind between these two decks. So I think that this is just a strictly worse version of good stuff in my mind.
See, that's kind of where we disagree. You would put it in A for Antitan. I would put it in B for Bugs. This deck is not particularly fantastic in my eyes. I think it has a lot of a very large number of points of failure in deck building and gameplay that just caused me to put it at minimum below Champions of Apollo. I think it is very bad.
Really?
You have to play so many bricks, both literal and theoretical, between the Antitan line, between the Champion Spectrus, if you're up against one of the rogue decks that doesn't play Lycovoid, or a meta deck that doesn't have a Lycovoid start. And post board, your opponent can just do stuff that beats the Champion Spectrus. They can play around it. Our opponents are able to think.
That
And
is true. That is true.
also, the biggest thing that really makes me not want to play Antitan in basically any capacity right now is if you start your turn by playing Ardbud and searching a Viscerus, I can cast Werepup, search Full Moon, set it, swing over, and pass. Your starters, your turn 1 plays, your best cards should never die to a Werepup this format. Because the second you do, you cede so much tempo when you really can't afford to.
Well,
I'd call it a B tier deck.
You wouldn't run out Ardbud on turn 1, surely.
See, you wouldn't, but there's the problem.
Well, okay.
Sometimes the hand just shakes out.
We have to assume that we play our deck correctly. Like I would rather expend to draw than run out the Ardbud, but I think that this is one of those decks that like I agree with you. I think that it would be running bricks. Like I don't think you can main deck the champion Spectruses and stuff.
It's
like
there's just so much that can go wrong, and there's so many cards that are just kind of underwhelming in too many game states for me to really call it an A tier deck. I'd call it B.
We can put it in B. We'll put it into B for now, but I think it's A. I think that this deck is A, but it's like a skillful A. So it's like maybe top of B tier. I could get behind with like top of B tier.
Yeah, I think I like that placement a lot more.
Yeah. All right. So we have 2 different bear decks here. Let's start with the first one being kind of like traditional bears or like a mid-range bears. Where would you put like mid-range bears?
Mid-range bears is a tough one because I'd call it an A tier deck. I'd call it like
I would say.
I think it's strong, but I think that it isn't your best option. It's definitely well positioned into Leica Void because theoretically, with a single copy of Don't Poke, Ursier clears the entire Leica Void board and pushes advantage. And it does get to play the cards that make the next deck really strong. But I think that it's just a little too fair in a few too many ways. The stat lines just aren't good enough, and it just plays a lot of underwhelming cards.
I can get behind that. I think A is a pretty fair place to put it. But let's I guess like to talk about this deck better, we have to also talk about the other version of bears that's running around, which is the kind of the Bears Turbo. Do you wanna talk about the Bears Turbo? Because I think that maybe this is a hot take. I would put them both in A tier. But I think the mid-range bears is better.
See, that's where you and I disagree, because I think combo bears is better. Combo bears has this level of explosivity that just kind of isn't really, like, it's not so much that it's unmatched in Elestrals as of now. There are plenty of ways to throw a 3-drop on field that wins the game. The problem is that most of the decks that do that have a ton of consistency issues, really underwhelming cores. You know, it can't really mount pressure if the 3-drop gets outed. But the Bears combo deck, it's just, if you out the Majesty, you're just playing against Frost 5s, right? They just drop Cryover and after Cryover and after Cryover on you, and you just get smothered by all these big dudes that just get you, you know? And after a Majesty wipes your back row, that's really hard to handle. And I think that it's better positioned, if nothing else, than Bear mid-range right now.
I've heard that argument, and I just haven't found that to be the case playing against that deck. What I find to be the case more frequently is that they do, turbo through their deck. They do see the combo, and they do have their big bombs. But the problem that I've found is that the deck can be very expensive, and unfortunately, it's kind of one-tricked to where if you go for the play and the opponent like Pandora's boxes you or Gorgon's gazes you or what have you, I find that the deck spent so many spirits getting to that point that you can quickly just kind of lose control of the game. With the bear deck, like the more mid-range bears, I like that deck a little bit more because you can still do the same things that the combo bear deck is trying to do, with like getting out the Majesty and also even playing supporting cards like Cryovern or even like a Fire Artifact package in a mid-range bears deck. And I think that just gives you a little bit more flexibility and lets you kind of play a little bit of a longer game. The other thing that I like about it is that you do have Ursier, which pairs very nicely against the good stuff boards, which I think my issue with the bear combo deck is that because it's so expensive, the Werepup board can become an issue if they do not see the right cards to deal with it at the right time. And I think just the mid-range bears having a little like a few more ways to deal with that like pressure is like appreciated.
Yeah,
they're both
I
really
think that,
good though. I think I would put them both in A tier, but I think the one caveat, like to your point, the bear combo deck is the one that has had a premier performance so far, not the mid-range bears.
That's actually not quite correct. Mid-range bears also has had a performance. Cobalt Sanderson took it to top 8 finish at a PNM.
Oh, I wasn't counting the PNMs. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I wasn't counting the PNMs. My bad. Sorry, Cobalt.
But honestly, the thing with which bear deck should be ranked above which, it all kind of comes down to personal preference, right? Like that's one of those things that's just going to be different for everybody. But I think they are next to each other, and I think they are in A tier. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah. How do you feel about Blazers OTK, another fire deck?
It's like fine.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's like it's definitely more playable than it ever has been. I know a lot of people like it with Hestia. I think Hestia is bad. I think that card is not good, and I think that deck is not good. But I will say the Fire Artifact support has put Blazerus way higher than it ever has been. But it's still just fine. It's just fine.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that this deck is just a budget build of these decks. This is just bear combo but worse. Moving on, we have Blizztrix. Do we even have to discuss this one?
No.
Yeah, this is clearly the other best deck in the game. Blizztrix though is a little bit casino-y. Some days Blizztrix you're never losing with that deck, and some days you're never winning. But with a skilled pilot, this deck is disgustingly strong, and it got even better with the Brummelings. I think Josh showed that off really well in the first premiere. Is even though Rise to the Ashes got hit, it kind of doesn't matter. Like, you don't even need the Blizztrix. You just need to put, Brummelings on the field and make all your dudes big dumb bodies and just go face with them, and this deck's really gross. This deck's really, really gross. Let's see. How do you feel about the Majesty champion deck, or the Champions of Poseidon?
Straight to D tier. I don't like that deck.
I would put it in C tier. I think
that you look at Majesty Champion and you look at like how easy it is to get to it, and you start bat chesting and thinking, oh my god, it turns off all the monster effects. But like, no, this card's just mid. Like, getting to it is a pain in the ass because your individual card quality takes a massive hit because you're playing trash. You're playing trash cards. And then, like, even when you get it out, you're still dying to every counter. And so now you have to also find, like, a Hurricane or a Trident of Poseidon. And now you're adding additional mid-combo pieces to a mid-deck. And your hands end up being, completely dysfunctional messes. And if you go second, you lose on the spot because your opponent goes Gorgon's Gaze effect. Target the Sluggle. And then you're like, oh, damn, I'm sitting around with a 1-3 on the field. Oh no, guess I lose. And then you lose. You lose fast. You lose hard. You lose consistently. The only consistent part of the deck is that you'll be signing match slips and your opponent has won. Like, it's nothing. It's a nothing deck. I love it to death. It's a nothing deck.
You're very passionate about this. I agree I agree with a lot of what you're saying. However, I still think that D tier is like, we don't have an F tier, right? Like this is taking F tier. I think that this is above like what would effectively be F tier. I think that it's a C tier deck. I don't think it's good, but I think it is at least more competent than like the worst decks in the game.
I guess. I do kind of see your point. The one thing saving Majesty in my eyes from being complete like garbage is that Poseidon's Fury is one hell of a card. I'm trying so hard to break that card.
That's the thing is that this deck is it has really scary tools in its toolkit that it hasn't really been perfected. I don't think anybody's like tried to break the Majesty deck yet, but I think like if Majesty, like there's a world where Majesty's A tier, like that is a thing, like that there's a world where that happens. I don't think that we're in that world yet, but I think that this card is good enough to where you can win with it if you're playing well. Like, we could even realistically put it in B tier, but I think for now it's C tier. But there's definitely some really scary cards in there that you have to look out for. But it's not like, here, let's just so that we are working on an even playing field. It's not like other D tier decks, like potentially Terostar FTK.
Oh God, can I talk about the Terostar FTK?
You absolutely can. Let's go.
Okay, so shout outs to the Chicago server. I love y'all so much. I'm so sorry. The 9-card FTK, it's not good.
Getting the 9 cards on turn 1 is the hard part. Yeah.
I mean, if you cheat and draw 2 opening hands.
Yeah, true.
It's that simple.
And then you also draw specifically the 9 cards that you needed.
For what it's worth, there is maybe a future for Terostar in like some sort of really weird Leica Void deck, but it's like, why are you not attacking with the Leica Void? Why are you trying to burn them out? You have a Leica Void.
I think that Terostar is a card that like would be broken like 5 to 10 years from now. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree with you. Yeah,
we need like a decade's worth of power creep to make this card like broken. Moving back to the champions block though, how do you feel about the Vault Tempest deck, Daimax?
If you had asked me a month ago, I'd say put it with Majesty, but I think that's a high B tier. I think that I've been kind of sold on that deck. It's kind of spicy. I really love Titanic Strike Champion. I've really fallen in love with that card over the last month. But also the ability to play cards that are just so above rate, like Griffuse Champion, Vault Tempest Champion, is so nice. Like, you just get people sometimes. So many jump scares in this deck.
Bro,
so
you
many
have
weird
you
things
have me mystified right now, because that's not at all where I thought you were going with this. I thought you were going to say, if you asked me a month ago, I would have put it up here, but now I think it's down here. And that's
no.
So I agree with B tier. I would put it like maybe mid B tier. I don't think it's like high B tier by any measure. I think it's better than like the Majesty Champion deck for sure, because it does have some really strong cards in it, like the Titanic Strike. That card's just strong enough generically. Like, you can, like, I've played it in the good stuff deck before.
Oh yeah.
And like it's just a good strong card, but I do think that like the more I've played with this deck, the worse. Like, personally I'm putting it down here. This deck has burned me too.
No,
like,
there's no way. There's no way.
Me personally, I'm putting it down here. I think B tier is a good home for it, I think, because it's a solid deck. It has good cards in it. The problem is that everything in this deck is a 2-card combo at best. And really the big downside is that you have to put the Zeus on the field, and you need to put a lot of spirits on that Zeus, which just invites you to get Thunderstormed or get Echo-Linked or get, Poseidon's Fury or whatever, and it ultimately just kind of falls apart.
Yeah, I think that this is kind of similar to Champions of Apollo and Champions of Poseidon, really any of the Champions decks, which is that they will age like fine wine, but right now they're not quite there yet.
Yeah, like if we get more Champions of Zeus in the next set, then like maybe this moves up. But I think B is like a decent tier for it right now. Moving on to the next deck is Draking.
Oh, is that the best deck of the format right there?
It's
the second best. Put it
it's
in
like the third. It's like the third best. It's not
come
better
on
than
now.
Blizz.
It's the second best. It's better than Blizz. It's better.
It's not better. It's not better than Blizz.
It's better than Blizz. It's literally better than Blizz. That deck is crazy. That deck is so crazy.
Okay. Realistically, there's an argument to put this in A tier, because this is just good stuff. Like objectively, this is just a good stuff deck that plays Draking in it. Like, realistically speaking. But the thing is that Draking pairs so well with the Werepup core that this deck is very powerful. I think actually, okay, you're gonna hate me. I do think that this deck is like S tier like quality, because it's basically just a good stuff deck with a Draking in it. I think that's good enough reason to put it in A tier, like from like the
just
greater
because it doesn't have a niche.
Because it's a little niche. It's effectively the good stuff deck, but slightly worse. The big thing is that I think it's taken advantage of in these first couple premieres that people are still figuring out the format, and they didn't really think about Draking existing. And as a result, I think a lot of people were off of Specterus. I haven't done the every deck stream for the second major tournament, but subscribe so that you can find out when that happens. because we do review every deck that gets played in this game quite often.
Every single deck.
Every deck ever. I think a lot of people have been dropping spec. Like, I know that I haven't seen a lot of specs running around in my tournament runs. The result of that is that this deck has performed a little bit better, and I expect it to fall off a little bit in the grand scheme of things. But I do think that this is a very strong deck. Like, like if not like top of A tier, like bottom of S tier.
Honestly, I could see that being the case. As much as I do want to be like, dragging best deck, baby, let's go. It's the best deck now and forever. The Nauts were never wrong. Ultimately, it is just worse than good stuff. It's a different core, but it's the same stuff. It's the same deck in a different coat. It's just okay in the grand scheme of things comparatively.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think that also levels out where we have everything else currently listed as well. Now this is the one where we have to start like making decisions. These next two decks is Earth Nexus. We obviously have to include it. I don't think anybody's really played it. There was like one Earth good stuff deck in the top cut of the first premiere, I think. It was basically a good stuff deck, but like with Equilinks and Argos and stuff in it. And I thought that list was really good. I don't know if I want to say that this is S tier. This might be like Draking tier, where it's like
I agree.
Yeah, it kind of does the same stuff as good stuff, but with with a little bit more synergy focused cards, and like maybe that's better, maybe that's worse. I think good stuff usually comes out ahead just because it has more space for tech cards.
Yeah, I mean, Earth is really hard for me personally to rate because I am cursed. I cannot play Earth. Something about Equilinks just rejects me. But, ultimately, the card quality is really high. The deck is really strong. I'm not going to pretend it's not. And, I think A tier is a solid place to put it. I'd put it around Draking's power level, yeah.
Yeah, it's in the same vein as good stuff, where it's kind of doing the same stuff as good stuff. But the trade-off here is that you're cutting some of the best cards in the deck in order to pivot into more of an Earth build, and that can make the Spirit Math a little wonky. So I think that just puts it down to A. In the same vein, how do we feel about Fire Nexus? I'm tempted to put Fire Nexus in S tier because it is the most represented in top cut deck, I think, of the format. My intuition tells me that it's like lower A tier.
So I want to put it in S tier as well, and I'll tell you why. It's because it has something that the other decks that were in contention for S tier don't, which is that it actually has a niche, right? Mm-hmm. Draking and Earth are just good stuffs with extra steps. This actually is fundamentally different enough that it has something going for it, right?
Yep.
And that really you can't say about any of the decks in A tier except their combo exactly, right? So I think that by virtue of having the ability to not be worse than good stuff on a fundamental level, Fire Artifact does take an S tier space for me, but I could agree with A tier as well. I think on card quality, A tier is justifiable. There are a lot of bricks, but I think it's S tier.
I think it's S tier because it's clearly seeing a lot of success. My intuition wants me to put it in A tier because I know from for two reasons. One, it's a 2-card combo deck. You always need 2 cards. You need the Valkyries plus an Argo for that to feel really good, or you need the Kinleo plus a bank for that to feel really good. And my issue with that is that can get kind of spirit intensive, and sometimes you draw the pieces out of sequence, and that is not the same as just the sheer I'm always doing something broken every turn potential that these two decks have. But I do think that it does have that niche. It does theoretically have a good matchup into Blizz because you have the Kinleos to pop the big dudes, and it can be very good into the good stuff decks as well because you have a bit more of a game plan going on, and you do get to play those Argos that good stuff doesn't love to deal with. So I think it's up there, and I think it has the results to back it up. So I'm comfortable putting in S, but my intuition tells me to put it down here. The next deck we have is kind of I'd say Frost good stuff or Frost 5s. I don't think we've seen too much of this in the format. I think that this is just like a deck that like on paper exists, and I'm not really sure if anybody's like played it.
Honestly, I think that we saw a little bit of experimentation in the first PNM, but I don't think we saw much past that. Personally, I put it at the bottom of A. I kind of think of Frost 5s as the bar right now. Like, you have to be this tall to ride. You got to be better than Frost 5s to be, you know, a really good deck right now. And top of B, bottom of A,
Yeah,
I think that's the right spot for a deck like that.
I think top of B makes the most sense in my mind because, like you said, it is the bar. So anything that clears this bar goes into like A and S tier, and I think that it is just the king of the rest in my mind. How do we feel about Farergeist? Has anybody really played Farergeist?
Man, I've been playing so much Farergeist. I've been trying this whole damn time. But yes, Farergeist actually has been seeing consistent experimentation. Doom Raider has been playing a lot of it, Earth Lunar Farergeist, and has been doing pretty decently with it. I don't necessarily know if Farergeist is as good right now as it was during Moonrise, but I do think that there is something there with regards to the Lyca Void engine, making it significantly easier to put a bunch of lunar spirits on the board. I think it's like a solid B tier deck. I don't think it's the best thing you can be doing, but I think it's solid enough to win a local or maybe do well at a premier if you're a good player on a decent day.
I think with everything you just said, I think I want to put it in C.
I think I disagree with you because I love Farergeist. That's my friend.
That is true. He is friend shaped. But have you considered that at that point you could just play Good Stuff or Draking or Titan? I feel like these are all better lunar decks than Farergeist. I feel like Farergeist is just like
that is fair.
Yeah,
especially with Fire Artifact being so popular and powerful. It's really hard to justify Farergeist into a Kinleo field, but like at the same time, I still think that it is a solid option. Like it completely dumpsters a lot of the Frost decks running around, except exactly Blizz tricks, but we'll get to those later. And it can really threaten. Like Draking just doesn't have an out. Draking can't beat that card. But I think it's a solid option. I think it's better than the decks in C tier. I think I'd put it in B, but that's just me.
I think my issue with it is that everything's liable to side Boombat. So I think like maybe game 1 it's in B tier, but I think it falls to C tier pretty quickly. So I'm pretty comfortable putting it in C. Because like if Majesty's in C tier, I think that Farergeist has to go down here. I think that Majesty's for sure better than Farergeist.
Hard disagree, but you know that's what it is.
I think that these two are like about the same quality. Hermes.
Hermes.
This one's interesting. I think there's a couple places that this could go, and I'm not sure where it goes. I think that there's a world where Hermes is like either high B or low A, but I think it's D tier.
I think it's low C, actually.
It's either I could get behind low C. I think that that's probably fair.
All I'll say is, just like the rest of the champion decks, it'll age like fine wine. But right now, I refuse to believe in a deck that plays Verdolith unironically.
Okay, I don't know if they play Verdolith unironically. I think this deck has like one decent thing in it is that like the Spinosec stuff feels like okay.
Yeah, I mean Trickery is an insane card.
Yeah, Trickery's crazy, but there's been some like ruling updates with that card that has made that card a lot worse.
I maintain it's still crazy even with the clarification.
I agree.
Like my core problem with the Hermes deck is that it's a really expensive setup for a relatively underwhelming payoff. The card pool just can't support it yet. And that yet is the big word, but we don't live in the set 6 meta yet. You know, we don't live with, I don't know, Plumbo, Champion of Hermes, who, when it's sent to the graveyard, domes your opponent for 10. Like, we don't have the cards that would break this.
Yeah, I think that this deck would need a card that kind of made Hermes free to use almost like repeatedly, because the big problem that I have with this deck, and the reason why I want to put it in D tier, is it's just so expensive. Like you're spending 2 spirits to send a guy to the grave, which usually costs spirits, if that makes sense. Like you have to pay to do something. It reminds me of Hestia, which I'm realizing we don't actually have like a Hestia deck on here. I don't think there actually even is a Hestia deck that exists.
The closest thing is Mill, which isn't worth talking about.
Yeah. So like I think I would put it down here just because like the Hermes decks are really struggling, like to a point of almost being non-functional.
I do agree with you that they are struggling, but I just don't think it's on the same tier as the Terostar FTK.
Okay, I'll put it in front of Terostar FTK. How does that feel?
It's still rough, but all right.
We can like this.
Hermes
is like,
fans let the record show. I believe.
Let's put it in D tier for now, and we'll make a note to revisit Hermes because depending on what else ends up in D tier, it might like
we might need an F tier.
We might need an F tier. I think we did need an F tier, but it's okay. Next we have the Javalantis Champions of Poseidon. Okay, so this is Javalantis, which is like what would we even call this? This is like the other Champions of Poseidons that are not named Majesty.
Honestly, I don't really consider the Majesty deck a Champions of Poseidon deck. I think that's Majesty, and then the Javalantis deck is the proper Champions of Poseidon, because it actually plays most, if not all, the cards named Champion of Poseidon, whereas Majesty just really wants its own line in Galaxy, right? This is more of an aggressive take. I've also seen like it be played as the payoff to Water Nexus.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I was playtesting with Spicy Sausage, and he was really, really putting on a good show with the Water Nexus with Javalantis as the payoff. I really believe in the deck. It's still a C tier deck, though.
Yeah, I think C is probably fair. I want to put it in. I want to put it in D. I think in my head because it's like D doesn't feel right for this deck because for the same reason like why I think we need an F tier is because like. It's clear these decks are both clearly better than something like Terostar FTK, right?
Yeah.
But like Javalantis in my head, it's like, okay, we're building a water deck, but Javalantis just kind of feels like a guy that like you're playing water, and then you activate a tsunami and you cast him from your hand, and like that jump scare is cool, but it doesn't really feel like it gives enough of a reason to play water. At that point, I would rather just play Majesty and like just put Javalantis in a Majesty deck.
The problems that I have with Javalantis, because I've been trying to build a Javalantis deck that I really like, same with Majesty, for a while now. The problem I keep having with the Champion of Poseidon cards is that the individual card quality is just so low. And like with Javalantis, the payoff is supposed to be that you have a near unshieldable guy that just jumps out, right? And you can use it to blank battle phases, kind of like how you would with Like Void. You could use it to push for damage, but after all your guys have attacked, you could use it to dodge like poison to Teros and stuff. But like in a lot of ways, every time I think of an application for the Javalantis champion, the only niche it has over the Sorlet package is that you can use it to blank a battle phase if you only have one guy, which is like kind of weak comparatively. Like it just doesn't justify itself over the Sorlets, which is the biggest issue with it.
Well, here's the other thing that I think like that invalidates it, and I think you've kind of like already said it, is that its best role is to blank a battle phase, right? But the card that you use to blank the battle phase to trigger this card is by activating Tsunami. Tsunami
already blanks the battle phase.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Tsunami already blanks the battle phase, so this card doesn't really do anything other than just saying, hey, sometimes if you activate Tsunami and blank your opponent's battle phase, sometimes one of your guys gets taller, which is like neat, I guess.
The piercing is neat, but if you really want to play a deck that goes really tall with a water ascension and has piercing, just play Wayance.
Yeah, I think Wayance is definitely... I think we can actually put Wayance in B, like low B.
I agree with that, yeah. It's definitely not as strong as I want it to be, but it is stronger than the decks in C, I feel.
Yeah.
Wayance is just a great card.
Here's the other thing, too, with like the Wayance deck, is... And why I think I would put something like Javalantis in D tier is... Think about what you're trying to... What cards would you include if you're playing something like Javalantis? Well, you're going to play, like, Foamies and Eddies and Champion Galaxies and maybe, like, regular Galaxies. It's like these cards all live up here in these good stuff decks, right? So you're not going to play a pure water. So you have to find, like, a new edge. And you can't play stuff like Viscerous, Ass Rabbit, blah, 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 because at that point you're just playing good stuff with the Javalantis in it. So what is the natural like progression? Like what synergizes the most with water? Well, it's frost. And what deck is the water frost like mixer? It's the Wayance deck. So like you have the like you have to be this tall to ride this ride kind of stuff with the Cryo 5s. Like you can play Bremerlinks, you can play like Cryoling, Cryovern stuff. And you still and then you get to play Narpoon, which is a good water Elestral. And it all just kind of comes together in this deck.
Yeah.
So I think that this
then,
is like
even then, Wayance. If you're going to play Javalantis, why not just play Wayance? And if you're going to play Wayance, why not just play Frost 5s?
Actually,
like
yeah, with that argument, I think I'm actually more comfortable putting it at the top of C because this is just the worst version of
these 3 decks share so much DNA that it's like, why are you not? There's no real reason to play one over the other. It's just like a constant step up. Like, you're like, okay, well, all I do is swap out like 4 cards from Javalantis, and I'm playing Wayance. Okay, well, I'm playing Wayance. All I have to do is swap out 4 cards, and now I'm just playing Frost 5s.
Actually, with that in mind, how do we feel about doing this as the top of every tier? Is kind of a step up. It's almost like a logical progression of you start from one deck and you devolve into good stuff. Because like you start with Javalantis and it's like, okay, well, what's slightly better than Javalantis? Because I don't want to use my like Tsunami and just waste it. Well, we could play, you know, the slightly better Water Ascension deck in Wayance. And it's like, well, then why am I adding these random bricks into my deck? Let's cut those. Now I'm left with like a Frost 5s deck. And then it's like, okay, well, what's the better version of like a water like Ascension deck? Okay, well, that's Draking. And the only way to make that better is to just cut the Draking, and now you're left at good stuff.
I do completely agree with that. And one other last little thing I want to touch on with Javalantis is, you know, people might say, well, you know, you don't have to waste your Tsunamis on triggering Javalantis. You can use Tsunami High Tide. If you're playing Tsunami High Tide, you're probably playing Schnark to search it. If you're playing Schnark to search it, why aren't you just playing Draking?
Exactly.
And like, you know, the last way to get to it is Veritaka with Poseidon. If you're trying to draw Poseidon plus a random weenie, why aren't you playing Majesty? Like, there just isn't a niche for Javalantis, unfortunately.
Yeah. And with that in mind, how do we feel about the Cryo Rhino deck? I think it's a comfy B. Like same tier as the Frost 5s, because it's very similar to Frost 5s, just with more bricks.
Yeah, it's Frost 5s for the gambler.
Yeah, like it's Frost 5s, but sometimes you drop 2 8s on the board and just go crazy. How do we feel about more Frost? This is a Josh deck. For Josh specifically, it's up here.
Yeah, for everyone else, I think it's a middle of the pack B tier. No, hold on. I don't think it's D tier, because for what it's worth, it's actually absurdly well positioned in Lycanvoid. Because, like, think about it, right? Your opponent draw phase shotguns the full moon, goes into Lycanvoid. You just go Scorpio, pop it. They can't hit over Lycan form in defense because it has 3 defense. If they hold it, Cryoblast. Their rep up's down. I see.
Do I need to...
Yeah, so anyways, it's D tier deck. I don't know. Morphos is like, fine, I want to believe in it, but it's probably mid.
Here's the thing I think that happens with Morphos. Morphos is a deck that loses to stuff like... It loses to suppression extremely hard. So Spectrus being a good stuff card, and, you know, with Lunar being so prevalent in the format, this deck is always liable to get sniped by, you know, Dense Fogs, Spectruses, Gorgon's Gazes, yada, yada, yada. With stuff like Blizztrix running around, the Stadium Wars are now occurring, and if this deck loses its Stadium, it loses almost all of its edge. This deck is very cool, but I think this deck is not one that realistically competes very well. Like, this is like, when I say that this is like an S tier Josh deck, I think Josh could take this deck and do well with it, because Josh is just going to navigate through everything, you know, flawlessly every time. And like almost with like psychic levels of accuracy. I think we could like realistically like put this in like C tier, because I don't think it's like D tier status.
It's no Terostar.
No, it's no Terostar. But I think that this deck just gets farmed by too much in the format. I think in previous formats it was probably B tier, but I think it's fallen down a little bit.
I agree. Next up is Moth. My beloved.
This one
Moth.
is Flame. This one is Terostar tier.
Whoa, 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 whoa! No, no, it's Hermes tier. It's Hermes tier.
Yeah, it's
isn't that much of a step up, but Moth, I want it to be crazy. It's so easy to get to a Moth now. I mean, it's only a 2-card combo. We went from the 4-card combo of old to just 2. Aelus plus Tower of the Winds. The issue is that you're playing Aelus and Tower of the Winds. The card quality is just so low, and Flame Moth demands such heavy spirit investment into fire that you just don't really want otherwise. It's just so awkward in so many ways. But I do own multiple Stellar Nimbugs, so S tier, baby! S tier! Let's go! Flame Moth S tier! Let's go! Let's go! What's up, my Nimbugs?
Yeah, I think unfortunately the best Flame Moth card is Burning Woods, and that is a generic side deck card.
And even then, it's just okay.
Yeah. Okay, how do we feel about Nixamera?
It's ass. It's so bad. The only Nixamera deck to even break top 16, not top 8, top 16, ever, was just 5s with a couple random copies of Bunnix. It's absurdly underwhelming. It taxes you so heavily. I mean, Nixamera, every turn, you have to put an additional spirit under it for the Ascension effect, right? And, like, you don't technically lose the spirit, but you do lose the spirit. Your spirit deck is getting drained by 2 every turn cycle. It basically has a Necklace of Harmonia equipped to it, but it's a 7.
Well,
and
I think the crazy thing is that you do lose the spirits because they all end up underneath your Nixamera, and if you run out of spirits to ascend with, you lose the game because it pops itself.
Yeah, and you know what the worst part about Nixamera is?
What's that?
Do you have any idea how easy it is to out a Fallen Form? Like, the whole idea is that Risen Form is supposed to clear the way for swinging, and then Fallen Form just protects itself for the turn, right? Because it's a 4/7 that has targeting protection from Invoke Runes, right? Normal cast Galaxy, effect. Your guy is dead. Normal cast Eddy, switch it to attack. Crash. If it's early enough, your guy is dead, and I didn't take that much damage. Activate Poison Tipped Arrow in the end phase when you tag into it. Your guy is dead. Activate, like... Gorgon's Gaze, shut it off. Activate EQ, your guy is dead. I can do so many things to a Nixamera Fallen Form that just crack it immediately. It's not a threat. It's not a problem. And Nixamera Risen Form does not beat the number 8. I can resolve Narpoon effect, and Nixamera loses on the spot. It's just such a nothing payoff, and it's a shame, honestly. I do really like these cards. Mechanically, they're interesting, but, it's just too easy to out Fallen Form. There's no real staying power here, and it's too expensive.
Yeah, I think that's really, unfortunately, where it lies. But now, I think we've been kind of, slumming it in, the lower tiers for a little while, but I think we finally hit a deck that's worthy of the higher tiers, and that's Penter. I think this deck's, solid A tier, right?
That deck is crazy, yeah. The pigs are absurdly well positioned. The Penter is an insane jump scare still. At the end of the day, the game has not strayed too far from Special Summon Blue Eyes White Dragon being an incredible play, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Penter is an incredibly simple deck, but there's so much that it does so powerfully that it doesn't need fancy gimmicks. All it needs to do is just hit you over the head with a large hammer, and you'll die.
Well, I think the thing that's really crazy about this deck is that it matches up very... the pigs are crazy, obviously, and we didn't want to break down, every win deck into, a bunch of different decks, because they really all are just, different ways to, abuse the pig, right? Because the pig is, really, really good. And Penter, I think, is the one that abuses it the best, because it's a natural Hurricane deck where you have both the pigs and Penter to, payoff of just, wiping all of your opponent's back row. But also, this deck does not care about Argo in the slightest, which gives it a good matchup into the Fire Nexus. You would think that Fire Nexus feels really good into Penter because you have the Kinleo to pop the Pent. But as long as they have a Gorgon's Gaze in their hand, they can just comfortably Hurricane all your back row, or even just run out the Penter or the Hydrake, not care about your Argo that might be set, crash down into your board, get out a big dude, and then protect it. And there's almost no coming back from that. As well as being able to trade the Good Stuff board or the Like a Void boards very, very easily. I think the one place where this deck kind of struggles, and the reason I wouldn't put it up as high as S tier, is while it is solid into some of these top decks, like you can crash into the big guys versus Blizz. The problem is that with Blizz, they can obviously pop the Pent. And the problem with the Like a Void board is it's just so expensive as a way to deal with some of the bigger dudes in the format that there's probably more efficient ways to do it, but this deck is just loaded with threats, and I think it's really strong contender. Like, definitely the best win deck of the format.
Before we get too far off, just to briefly expand on not breaking down every wind variant with the pigs, this is also the reason why you don't see Like a Void in every single picture here.
Yeah, that is true. Like a Void can just kind of go everywhere.
Speaking of Like a Void decks, let's talk about Phosphel.
I don't think this is a Like a Void deck.
No, it's a Like a Void deck. You know why?
Why?
Normal cast Square Pup, add Full Moon, step Full Moon, flip Full Moon, enchant a Lunar, ascend with a Solar Spirit on the Like a Void.
I see.
Cast 2 Air Pups. Next turn, normal cast Larva Cell, Nexus the Solar, trigger to ascend to Anacell, you win the game. However, there's one problem with that. You resolved Like a Void. Why are you adding an extra step? You already won.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Is like, is this D tier?
I think it is above Flame Moth, but below Nixie. Yeah, that's a good spot for it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where it lives.
It's a fine deck, but unfortunately, it just ends up playing like all the worst cards of Thunder and Solar, which are like two theoretically strong elements that just don't like. I don't know. The Titanic Strike stuff feels great in it. The Plucky champion, I think, is pretty underwhelming, but I mean, Liar as an Argo target feels really nice. There's so much that on paper for Phosphel looks good, and then you remember you're playing with a 7/4 that's your big win condition and has no protection, and then you cry.
Yeah, when your 3-drop is as big as a Cryo Rhino, it's not great. Speaking of good decks, though, solar decks rather, how do you feel about Scrap?
I mean, it's your standard Josh deck. What do you want me to say?
This is a Josh deck.
I think it's fine. It's solid. I'd put it in high B tier. Like, recency bias would tell me it's an A tier deck, but I just don't think anyone but Josh will see much success with it.
I would be more comfortable putting it in A tier. And the reason why I'd put it in A tier is kind of following the same logic that we have with a lot of these decks, is that this is just like a different version of Fire Artifact, where the idea is that like you're basically playing all the Fire Artifact cards in this deck, but you're also just playing Cybermalls and Helioliths and stuff like that. And
following that, just to quickly interrupt, following that train of thought, Scrap in its current incarnation is just the step above Champions of Apollo. Because Champions of Apollo shows a lot of DNA with this solar deck.
Yeah, so like, I think we can like put these kind of like in a row too.
Yeah.
And just kind of like line them up. And here, I'll do the same thing with Antitan underneath the Earth Nexus. Because these are kind of like the step ups, like the logical progression decks, where it's like, these are all just different versions of each other. So I feel comfortable putting this in A tier because I think it's significantly better than all of these decks, but I don't think it's like quite as focused as these decks are. I do hope that we see a little bit more of it to see if we can get some more results, because currently it's just like Josh. I also played Scrap, like a different version of Scrap, like without Cybermall at the most recent premiere. I did like okay. I think that my technical play wasn't great that premiere. Like I wasn't really like playing my best. But the deck definitely felt like it had issues. Like, I don't think it's as, like, refined as these decks are. And playing, like, so many artifacts never feels great. So, I'm comfortable in A tier, I think. Shiverore. Shiverore got some, like, interesting support. And it is a Frost deck. There are a lot of, like, decent Frost decks in the meta. Like, I think being a Frost deck gives it, like, some legs to stand on. But I think that this is pretty cozy, like
it's a C tier deck. It's like low C tier because like it does have the tools to like win games, but again, we always have to come back to that question: why am I playing Shiverore when I could just play Moorfrost with better tools and all the same options? But now I am like better positioned in everything. Why would I play Moorfrost when I can play Cryo Rhino, play Frost 5s play Blizz tricks, you know?
Yeah.
Shiverore is just outclassed, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that this is just like a word here. We can oh wait. Dang, that breaks the other logical progressions.
Yeah.
I'll put it like over here.
Honestly, we could even argue putting it in D tier under the Morfrost, because like it really is just worse Morfrost. Because like, why would you play the 2-cost Ascension that's really hard to deal with because you can't target it, when you could instead play the 1-cost that is really hard to deal with because you can't target it?
Because Nixie is also worse Morfrost. Like these are all just like the bad Frost decks. The good Frost
what
decks
I'm learning,
are up here and the bad ones are down here.
The trend I'm noticing is that untargetable Frost Elestrals are not particularly good.
Which is so weird because you would think they would be.
Oh, can I talk about spiders?
I think Law will kill us if we keep talking because this.
That's true. Folks, please refer to the Spider Manifesto.
Yeah, you wrote an article. I had like there's like a whole clip of me like yelling about this deck. As much as I want to put this deck into D tier, it's like maybe C tier.
I'm gonna throw around a word that nobody likes to hear when they're talking about tier lists, but I think I agree that it is high C tier, if not low B tier, off potential alone. Once people realize they can cut Lair of Arachne's Lair, like that card is not good.
I don't know about that. I think you have to play Arachne's Lair.
All I'm saying, no, you don't. You just don't, because you know what you can play instead? Like a Wood. Hear me out.
True.
Hear me out. The win state of spiders looks like, on surface, that you draw a bunch of cards with Arachne's Lair, and you win the game because you win off advantage, right?
Uh-huh.
This is not correct. The way that spiders win is by sticking 2 guys. Because every single spider guarantees that you win combat, which means that you are guaranteed to win the trade war because you are chipping your opponent for 1 every turn cycle, while they can only do 1 spirit back to you by hitting over your spider, right? So, we have to ask the question. Why are we spending spirits to draw cards when we can just play Like a Void and generate a board for free, and then play a spider every turn and guarantee that we win combat?
Okay, so we're going to ignore that argument because that applies to every deck in the game. I think that the better argument is that I think you do play Arachne's Lair, but nobody was playing the burn version of this deck. Nobody was trying to like drop Floracne and burn the opponent to death. I think this deck is much better at doing that.
No, I fully disagree. I think that card is terrible.
I know.
But we both
that
agree that. I think it's very funny that we both. No, of course not. I do really like how we both vehemently disagree with each other on how spiders should be built, but we both agree that it's probably low C tier.
Yeah, it's like there's maybe something there. I think that I'm putting it in C tier on the Floracne angle because a lot of good players have already tested it with the other angle. Like we're not gonna play Floracne, we're gonna like play Tempo Spiders, and it didn't work. So I think that I'm gonna give it hope for Floracne angle. If that angle like really doesn't work either, yeah, this deck's trash. Let's talk about Thunder Nexus. How do you feel about Thunder Nexus?
Deck's ass. Like,
yes.
Listen, all right. People want to live the high of Sparkit Zeus. No, you can't live the high of Sparkit Zeus. New Sparkit, it's bad Typh Lamp. You know, it's literally a -1. I don't care how epic your hits are. I don't care how cool you can Nexus to Rabbit with it is. I just don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm gonna cast Nekruff and your entire deck falls apart. It just doesn't matter, right? This deck cannot beat Nekruff. I'd put it in C tier.
I don't think it's C tier. I think it's much better than all of these decks, and I think it's better than the Champions of Zeus deck as well.
I think that's less a statement about. I just don't like it. Like, at the end of the day, it is still Rabbit, not deck, but like that's just not enough, I think.
I'm gonna be very comfortable saying that I think you're too harsh on this deck. I think that this is a very solid B tier. It did top the most recent premiere. But
for what it's worth, the run was ended by literal divine intervention.
I don't think that this deck is like horrible though. Like I think this deck's fine. But I don't think it does. I just don't think it does anything particularly well. Similarly, okay, now we're moving on. So our last 3 decks, hopefully aren't going to end up in like the dumpster bin. I don't think they do. I think Tornagen is like. How do we feel about Tornagen?
I'd call it a solid B tier deck. Like,
yeah.
Tornagen, I feel, has always kind of had this problem where it has to play doo-doo foretell cards to guarantee that you hit. Now you can just call Sorlet, and because there are 2 cards named Sorlet in your deck that you want to play at high copy counts, like, you have some absurd number, like a 50% chance to hit, and because Tornagen is, like, weird because it's the only deck that I feel can justify playing Monsoon of Eurus in the main deck. So, like, you get to just get people with that, trigger the Tornagen off turn, do all that stuff. There's so many ways to just guarantee that Tornagen just hits, and without having to play objectively bad cards like First Light. And I think it's a lot better for that. It's a solid win deck. It's just not better than Penter.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how it falls. Is like it's one niche is that you have Eurus. I think that it fell down a lot. Like, because you would think that maybe it's like A tier because nobody's running Cryoblast right now. But I think the problem is that all the other cards in the deck have gotten worse, whereas stuff in like Penter is like a little bit better now.
Absolutely.
Like, if you're gonna run a win deck, you may as well just run Pents at this point. So then moving on, we have Champion Vault Tempest. How do we feel about OG Vault Tempest?
It's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, it's only as strong as the weakest link, and the weakest link is Griffuse. Griffuse is like really understated. It's the most gazeable Elestral of all time. It's like just okay. And at the end of the day, you know, you can play the pipe bomb build with it plays like Hermes and Aeolus and says, you know, I don't need the targeting protection. I'm just going to make you explode. And that's fun, but it's not great. Either you play the pipe bomb and you lose to just being not great, or you play the traditional build and you lose to the inconsistencies of having to open Griffuse, Zeus, and stick a dude for a turn. It's just so much working against Vault Tempest. I can't believe in it right now. Yeah. I think it's a C tier at best.
I don't think it's C tier. I think it lives in the same world as the other Thunder decks because it's still a Thunder deck. Like, Thunder is always like decent, but I think it's just like
I don't know. I'd put it in about the same tier as Majesty, I think, because like really in a sense they're the same deck, right? It's a big 3-drop that's hard to deal with because they turn off some large portion of your effects for Vault Tempest targeting effects, for Majesty Celestial effects, and they just kind of sit there until you can't out it, and then they kill you, right? Slowly.
I think this card is good enough on its own that it's like having a Vault Tempest in your deck immediately makes you better than all of these decks. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like this is just like a much significantly better card than every card in this tier, in like this section of the
tier. So I guess in a way we could make the same argument we've been making basically this entire video, that why are you playing Majesty when you can just play Vault Tempest?
Exactly. Like, I think that it's in this realm. I think it's about as good as the Champions of Zeus because it's probably playing a lot of the same cards, but it's just like, do you want to make it towers or do you want to pop a lot of things with Valkyries? I think they kind of live in this world, and like similarly with here, I can't do my little lineup. I hate that. Like, I'm trying to like line them up. Here, I'll move them over here, and I'll put these guys like all together because I think that this is just the ranking of the Thunder decks in the meta. Like, they're all B tier. Like, they're like decent, but they all have their own unique issues going on. And then finally we have a Wasp Ivy.
No, you can keep it there.
Yeah, I think that Wasp Ivy is pretty safe.
Yeah, this is, again, why would you play Wasp Ivy when you can just play Shiverore? Why would you play the big untargetable, unaffected 2-drop that dies to everything when you can play the big unaffected, untargetable 2-drop that dies to less things? And why would you play the big
one thing that Wasp Ivy has going for it is the burn damage, right? Like, because I did play against Wasp Ivy in one of the I think in the last premiere of Moonrise where the Fire Nexus cards were legal. And it was like a little scary because like I couldn't deal with the burn damage. Like, I could deal with the card but just not the burn damage.
I mean, yesn't, because like yeah, if you kill it in battle, it burns you, but like, or I could just Majersa pop it, or I could just use Kinleo to pop it, or I could just use Blistrix to pop it, or
Yeah.
Cryoblast post board. Like, there are a million ways to kill a Wasp Ivy safely, and like, the argument to that, like, you could protect it from Cryoblast using like some jank shit like Golden Fleece or Feloy Forest, but then you're playing bad cards like Feloy Forest or Golden Fleece, and it's just rough. It's just rough. Wasp Ivy is so rough. I want to like it, but I can't.
Yeah, it's kind of rough. So with that said, I think that this is all. I don't really have any complaints with this. Do we want to move Hermes? Like, is Hermes good where Hermes lives now?
I think I like where Hermes is. Let's put Terostar down a tier.
How do I add a tier? All right, that's the video. Bye, guys.
Okay, bye.